I just sent you a message in the chat.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk Family Life, building Shatterproof family one brick at a time. I'd like to encourage you to reach out to your friends, family members, neighbors, invite them to come and participate in this discussion with us this evening. Our topic for this evening is pursuing a relationship. Pursuing a relationship, something that we all, at one point in time or other during our lifetime, has done or will do. So this is relevant to all. So again, reach out to them and invite them to come and join us because we'll be having a riveting discussion on this topic because there's just so much to unpack with this topic. I am your host for this evening, Dr. Patricia Neff, and I am excited to be here because we have an esteemed individual who would be giving us lots of wisdom regarding this subject because this is something that he has done in his lifetime more than once, I will say. He'll explain. and and hopefully you're able to glean a lot from his experience and his wisdom. So again, welcome one and all to another episode of Real Talk Family Life. I'm your host for this evening, Dr. Patricia Neff, and we are discussing pursuing a relationship. I think we are ready to begin. Pastor Henry, are we, let me look at,
Yeah, we're live, I think.
I'm looking for, could you make sure that we're seeing everyone who's speaking, multi-speaker?
Oh, right. Yes, just I need to do that. Hold on.
All right. All right, so we're going to get started here because we have lots to unpack, and I'm waiting for the video to catch up with us. And while Pastor Henry works on that, I'll kind of share with you what the topic is, what the objective is, and
You know what? I made you host, so sorry about that.
oh, instead of co-host. Okay, let me help you with that one. All right. Okay, I change it back to you. So now
Okay, good.
co-host. I had the power and didn't know it.
Okay, there we go.
There we are. Yes. Good evening, one and all. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk Family Life, coming to you across the waters, but directly sponsored by Faith Tabernacle in St. James, Trinidad. But we come to you based on the input and wisdom of a group of Caribbean evangelical ministers who have a lot of input into what the topics we discuss are and how it's going to impact their congregations. Today, we are focusing on the topic pursuing a relationship. Excuse me, pursuing a relationship. And the objective that we have for this topic is that you, the audience, will understand what to have and look for when pursuing a relationship, what to have personally and what to look for when pursuing a relationship. To set the stage for our discussion today, I am going to read a scenario that has formed the basis of our discussions for this month. And based on this scenario, we will then get into the question for today. So 3 years ago, John's minister prophesied that God would elevate him from being a tenant to becoming a landlord. Within 18 months, John secured a new job that enabled him to purchase a home with a two-bedroom apartment. Recently, John has been praying for God's guidance in finding the right woman to marry. Last week, his pastor again prophesied this time that a new convert in the church would become his wife. This new convert has been receiving a lot of attention due to her remarkable testimony. God miraculously delivered her from a life of sex trafficking, drugs, and prostitution. The question is, should John heed the pastor's prophecy and pursue this woman? Or should he continue praying for God to lead him to the woman he is meant to love? And as we discuss this question, as it pertains to pursuing a relationship, a couple of things we want to look at. One, the importance of knowing your purpose, goals, and aspirations, and the importance of identifying both parties' vision, vocation, and values, and ensuring that these qualities complement each other so that the couple can work well together. So Pastor Henry, who is our guest for today, who comes to us with decades of wisdom and experience on this topic, who has counseled hundreds and hundreds of couples pursuing marriage and relationships. And he comes to us with lots of valuable tidbits that he's going to share with us today. So, Pastor Henry, I am going to pose this question to you. Please feel free to proceed. There's a lot. This is a lot.
It is a lot here. And while preparing, I'm wondering if I would be able to finish everything in one session. But I will try. Good night, everyone, and it's good to having you on Real Talk Family Life this evening. Trust that as we look at this scenario and we look at what is before us, that those who are pursuing a relationship, that you would ensure that you have things in place before you start to plan the marriage. I sent out a poll earlier on asking for feedback, and I listed several things that a person should have before pursuing a relationship that would lead to marriage. One or two persons responded. I tried to set it up in the Zoom so that you could have done it for me here while you're logged on. The only problem I did not choose a multiple answer or question. I set up as a multiple choice. So it just allow you to select one, and I ask that you select three. But anyway, we're going to move on. And what is it that a person must have before pursuing a relationship? What is necessary? So if John wants to pursue this young woman, here are a few factors that should be of no concern in the relationship. So I'm starting with what he should not bother himself about. He should not be bothered about the woman's past life as a sex slave. You only need to hear the story of the lady Rebecca Bender. She has an initiative after her name, bearing her name, the Rebecca Bender Initiative, which is set up to help young women who have been trafficked into the sex industry, to help them to better their lives, and to help those who have been victims of human trafficking. A very powerful woman in America these days, because of the work that she has been doing to help these women, so that you cannot just say, well, this woman who has been trafficked, John should not even bother with her because she was a prostitute being used by different men. That's not a way for us as Christians to judge people. So that should not be an issue. Neither should be the pastor's prophecy. Sometimes prophets speak from their own human understanding, and prophecy is only true when it is fulfilled. That says Moses in Deuteronomy 18:20-22. But before pursuing a relationship that leads to marriage, one should know the 3 V's. vision, your vocation, and your values. It is important that you know that. And the benefits for knowing your vision, vocation, and values are simple. There are about two or three that I have. The first one is that in knowing your vision, vocation, and values, it provides clarity in choosing the right partner. So you're knowing what your vision is, your vocation is, and your values are, it will provide clarity in choosing the person that you want to. And I will go through that in detail. But there are too many enter marriage because of attraction. You know, the nice looking person, you like the person, and so you fall for that kind of trappings. And some Christians are attracted to other Christians' testimony and other external trappings like physique. Knowing your goals and aspirations will guide you to pursue someone who will complement your goals and aspirations. So it's important that you know what you are looking for, who you are, what you have, and what you are looking for. And as I said, that would come in the 3 V's: what your vision is, what your vocation is, and your values. Your vision, vocation, and values lay a foundation for a strong, healthy relationship. They allow both partners to build their marriage on shared goals, vision, rather than just emotions. They ensure that the marriage is not just about companionship, but also about fulfilling God's mission, your vocation, and doing that together. And the three V's, this one, your values, they ensure that principle-based decisions are at the core of resolving differences and establishing priorities in the relationship. So it's very important that we keep in mind, and I try to put them that way so that at least you would remember them. You would remember the 3 V's: vision, vocation, and values. So let me start with vision. Vision is basically answering the question, where am I going? Where is my life going? What do I see for my life? What is my plan? What is the plan for my life? And so before thinking about marriage, you should have a clear vision for your life. If you don't have a clear vision for your life, you are going, but you don't know where you are going. Right? And if you don't have one, I suggest you should start by asking yourself some very important questions. If you're a young person, you're not sure what your life is all about, there's some important questions that you need to ask yourself. One of them would be, what excites you and gives you deep fulfillment when you get involved in it? What is it that really brings joy to your life when you get involved in that particular area, that particular task, or whatever it is? What issues or needs in the world stir your heart the most? And that is important. Some people may be called to politics, and if those are the kind of issues that really get you stirred up, then you should be thinking along that particular line. If it's the needs of people, you should be thinking about somewhere in the social setting of society. And ask yourself the question, if you could do one thing for the rest of your life, what would that be? And more importantly, what would I do for the rest of my life if I wasn't even paid for it? And when you have that, at least when you have answered those questions for yourself, at least you would have an idea as to where you want to go. And if you are not satisfied, about those questions do not give you the real answer, then sit down and picture yourself at 70 years of age, probably 75, 80. And I pick those ages because most people are retired by that age. Not everybody would go back to school at that particular point in time, but I was very motivated by a lady who was in her mid-80s. Sometime last year, I attended a graduation, and this lady was receiving her PhD in her mid 80s. I was I was really motivated by when by seeing her stepping forward to receive her papers at that age in life. But you need to see yourself, visualize yourself at that particular period of your life. Visualize what you would want people to say about you, what people, about the life that you have lived. Visualize that. I attended the funeral of a good friend in St. Vincent just last Thursday. And I was so impressed. I mean, the guy was so simple, so down to earth. And so, we've been friends for over 50 years. And he was given a state funeral because as a church, he was not just about, his vision wasn't just about bringing people into the church. So way back in the early part of his ministry, back in around the early in the 1900s, we hadn't turned the century as yet, just started this church, and he established to the annex of the church, he established a training center for the young men in the community to learn a trade. And I didn't know about this, but I learned that his church at the funeral, in the eulogy, I learned that his church established a medical facility in another community so that people can go in and see a nurse and see a doctor. And all of that was for free. The government has taken over the ventures now. And so for his lifestyle, he was given a state funeral. This man had a vision. He knew where he was going, and he sought to live that vision. And I would say for young people, when you have visualized where you are going, don't just keep it in your mind, you will forget. Write down what you desire for yourself at 70 or 80 years of age. Writing down your thoughts will help you to clarify them for you. And so write what you have in mind that you want to establish yourself for, as a vision, and seek to fulfill your vision through that. Seek divine, and above all, seek divine direction. Don't just leave it to your feelings. Pray and ask God for wisdom. The psalmist said, in all your way, commit all your ways to him and he will bring them to pass. Proverbs 3, 5-6. God revealed himself in vision for some of his people in the past. And I believe when you are seeking for that vision in your life, God will do it for you just as he did for Joseph, Genesis 37:5, for Jeremiah, Jeremiah 1:4-5, and to David, 1 Samuel 16. So that don't leave out that spiritual side. Or earnestly, you desire, you have those desires in your heart, you want to put them on paper so that you can understand, you can better understand the steps that you need to get to where you are going. And I'm saying that you need to do all of this for yourself. You need to have this very clear for yourself before you go talking to that gentleman about a relationship. I'm not making any mistake in what I'm saying, because I know the culture and everything says it's the gentleman who is supposed to come and talk. Somehow I am not sure if that is scriptural or if it's just our culture. And so if as a lady, you feel you want to go and talk to the gentleman, you want to pursue the gentleman, I don't see anything wrong in going and making yourself acquainted with the person. But before you do that, make sure you know where you are going. Because without a vision for yourself, you will destroy your life and the life of the person to whom you are married. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 29, verse 18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he." So I had a couple some years ago, for their first session in marriage counseling. And I said to the couple, at least to the young man, I asked him about what is his vision in life? What is his life purpose? Where are you going with your life? And he responded, Pastor, I do not need such. I live one day at a time, as the Bible suggests. That was the first and that was the last session. I'm not sure if the young lady took my advice or what, but they never returned. So I don't know what happened. They were not members of the church. They were just coming in for, they heard I did counseling, so they were coming for counseling. When the gentleman heard about vision, he felt that that was not something that was necessary. So I don't know. I can't say that they got married, they didn't get married, but if you have a vision, you are on the right path for a relationship, but that's not all that you need. Dr. Neff, you wanted to come in and say something before I move to the next point?
Um, you know, I had a question for you though, because me perhaps others are wondering.
Yes.
Look in the chat, nothing in the chat. You specifically said that you were talking to the women
Mm-hmm.
about if you want to talk to someone, and so forth. I've heard for all my life that, the man has to pursue the woman. And
Mm-hmm.
that the Bible says he who finds a wife finds a good thing, all that stuff. Yet you purposely spoke
Yes.
to the women. Could you explain your thought process on that?
I think women of vision know what they want. And
Okay.
if you see somebody that you want, I'm not saying that you go over to the gentleman and say, "Sir, will you marry me?" or "I would like to marry." That's not what I'm talking about. But the person is there, you can initiate. You should be able to initiate the conversation, the relationship. And I see nothing wrong with that for a woman to do. And a little later on, when I talk about vacation, I will show you a possible couple in the Bible where the woman seemingly was the one who was out to the front and not the man.
Okay, I was going to ask about a specific Bible female who I felt did that, but I'm going to wait to hear from you because
All right.
I'm glad you said that because I was about to say, well, what about she did?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
So I'm glad you said that. I didn't want to spill
Okay.
any beans here,
So the
but
next thing that is needed, that the next V is your vocation. What is my calling? Right. Uh, Factors that contribute to one's calling in life are the divine calling and purpose. What has God called you to do? For Christians, that is very important. What has God called you to do? Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10 is our watch phrase for the year that God has called us and He has set us aside. We are His workmanship. The actual verse is, "For we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God had before ordained that we should walk in them." And I believe that for every one of us, God has called us to a particular task. The problem is that many of us tend to function in an area for that God didn't plan for us to be. So we are like square pegs in round holes. We take a job because it is a job. And I've been watching what is taking place in the United States. I mean, I think the better approach, and I mean, if these guys wanted advice, the better approach would be to ensure that people are fitted in the job that they are gifted with. I work for the United States government for oh my goodness, 38 years, 39 years, thereabout. And it's one of the things that is prevalent. You have people who are in positions that they are not supposed to be in. And it's how the system is set up. And so you have problems all along. It's not that the people are bad, but give them the jobs that come with their gifts and their abilities. And as Christians, it is important that we understand our skills and talents and that God has gifted us with. We must ask ourselves that question: what are the skills and talents that come naturally to me? Romans chapter 12, verse 6. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. That's what Paul said to the Romans. And so you understand your vocation also by your personal experiences and life journey. What experiences, good or bad, have shaped your life to where you are today? What challenges have you overcome that could help others? How have your past successes and failures prepare you for the career that you feel that you should be engaged in? Okay. I have been, and it's not in government alone, but I mean, in ministry, when it comes to ministry, one of the problems is that there have been too many people doing the wrong thing in ministry. Simply because you go to school, you go to Bible school and obtain a Bible school degree, as the case may be, doesn't qualify you necessarily to be a pastor or a prophet, right? They may be essential if you are a pastor or a prophet, but it doesn't qualify you for those positions. Those positions are calling God. You look in the scriptures; they're supposed to be for people who have who have been gifted. And Paul would say that to the Romans, having gifts different. Let us function according to our gifts. And in life, each of us is supposed to know what our calling is, what our vocation is. And when we don't, we're going to have problems. So we have to know what our vocation is, what our calling is. Very, very young in life, in my youthful life, as a matter of fact, let me say this, I have done basically two things throughout my entire life, my entire working life. It has either been in teaching or pastoring. Or teaching, I should say, or accounting, because my pastoral ministry has always been about teaching. I'm not the one who gets up there and, how should I put it, to give the prophecy and all of these different things. I don't claim to be involved with those. Very young as a minister. I was probably just about 4 or 5 years into ministry then. I said to the general superintendent of the organization for which I was working, I would like to become a teaching evangelist. And the whole idea, you had evangelists back then who were doing the crusades and what have you, and people grabbed. And the evangelist looked at me and he said, I love your family. Your wife is very close to me and you have 2 nice little children. How are you going to take care of them if you go into the teaching, this teaching evangelism where you go from church to church teaching people? How are you going to live? How your family is going to live? And what it says to me is that here is a gift that the church is supposed to have. It's supposed to have that an organization does not make provision for the ministry, for those who are in that area, those who see it as a vocation, to survive by it as a vocation. All right. So it has either been teaching or accounting. As a matter of fact, before I got into Bible school, into ministry, I did accounting. And when I realized that my family had to live and I couldn't live from the pastoral work, just for a brief period, I went into sales because that was what was available at the time. But once I got back into accounting, that's where I've been all the time. So at present, I still function as a teacher. I still see myself as a teacher, and I don't function anymore as an accountant, but I am still paid, not from the church, but I'm still paid mainly for teaching. So people recognize your gifts, they recognize your abilities, and they use you accordingly. Okay, and when you know your gifts and your calling, you are going to be able to understand when the person say, what are you bringing to the table in this relationship, you know what you're carrying. All right. And thirdly, you need to know what your values are. Values shape decision making. From finances to parenting and ministry, your values should guide every major decision. When you have a choice to make between watching a movie and helping your children with their home lesson, it is your values that determine your decision. See, when we talk about values at times, we usually think only in dollars and cents. But values here, I'm not thinking just dollars and cents. I'm thinking about those things that are important to you as an individual. And and when you think of values, I'm not only thinking about the virtues like honesty and that kind of a thing. And I'm not just thinking about that, but values define your relationship expectations. They put in your head what kind of a relationship that you want, what is important and what is not important. And so values such as commitment, trust, and faithfulness are necessary to sustain any type of meaningful relationship. Mind you, it's not just Christian people have values. There are some people outside, there are some gangsters out there that have greater that have their values, and some of those values are even more entrenched than some of us as Christians. The gangsters, they seem to be void of values, but they demand core values. If they demand from each other certain core values, if you have to be one of them. They demand trust, they demand commitment, and they exercise those, they live by those values, although they have no value of the human life. They would kill the person, they would kill somebody who break their oath, as the case may be. But the thing is, their values, they have values, they're going to live by those values. So that as individuals, we have to know what our values are. What is more important? Is it what is more important, the car or a human life? The car or being early to church on a Sunday morning? What is my value? I really have to clean that car at this hour to come to church before I go to church this morning? Well, all of that is driven by your values, and you have to know your values before you get into a relationship, because if you don't know them, you're going to run yourself into problems. So now that we have explained values, vision, and vocation, it is important that you have them, and they're important that it's important that both persons have those similar values, vision, and vocation if they are going to maintain a relationship. And so sharing the same vision would answer the question, where are we going? All right. So when you understand where you are going and you meet somebody and that question comes up in the conversation, what do you want to do? Where are you going in life? What's your vision in life? Well, I don't know. I would suggest go somewhere else, go head somewhere else, because if the other person doesn't know where they're going, you're going to have problems going down the road, because two cannot walk together unless they be agreed, or if there's some form of agreement, or unless they agree to do so. So that the person need to be sure. One of the examples that I use, and let me put it in a different way. If you are in the Caribbean, right, and you are going to travel with somebody, and your intent is getting to Canada, And so you are saving up your monies to go to Canada, and you are traveling with this person who is supposed to be your fiance. And that person is saving up money to go to Argentina. You're not going to end up in the same places, because both people are going in opposite directions. And so to achieve this agreement, the couple must develop the skill to create win-win agreements. Because let me tell you something. You're not going to meet somebody in life that is going to have an identical vision as yours. It is going to be very rare. And win-win agreement is not a compromise. When you get a win-win agreement, it's not a compromise, but it is purposefully giving up a benefit to get something else, to get a win. So you are giving up a win, and the other person is giving up a win to settle on something, on a benefit that for the family. And so some of the key characteristics of having win-win agreements, understanding the idea of giving up, so that both parties can have something, can walk away with something, is that the win-win agreement creates mutual benefit. Both sides gain something valuable. There is fairness and equity. The agreement is just and balanced. There is collaboration instead of competition. The focus is on working together rather than one party dominating the other. And that is one of the big problems we have in relationships today. And the reason for that is when Eve sinned, when Eve disobeyed God, somehow the DNA, that act of rebellion passed into our DNA. So we were born when the apostle, when the psalmist said that in sin my mother conceived me, the whole idea coming into this world as a child, I'm coming as a sinner with a rebellious nature. I want to be God. That was Eve's biggest problem. She didn't have any problem with eating the fruit. God said we should not, and she told Satan, that's what God said. I don't have a problem not eating. But once Satan introduced the thought to her head, you are going to become God. Oh, eating the fruit was not a problem because it's going to give her something that somehow our mind craved after. And that's the human problem. And when you go into a relationship, right, and you do not know your vision, you do not know your values, you do not know your vocation, and you meet somebody, you are going to be defending your territory based on what you have set out to do. You are going to be defending that. But if you are not God and you are not always right, and you see somebody that you love, you can sit down. And I'm not saying that you compromise what you have set out to become, what you have set out to do. I'm not saying that you compromise that, but you sit down with the person and you talk it over. So one of the examples that I use with going in different places is the Port of Spain. Those of you who live in Trinidad, you leave together on this journey, and you jump into the taxi on Independence Square or South Key or wherever it is, and you are going east. When you get to the Butler intersection, one person says, but I want to go to San Fernando. The other person says, I wanted to go to Arima. Well, for a lot of people, what they do, well, you go about your way, I will go about my way. That's a win-lose. If when you understand win-win agreements, as far as your vision is concerned, you do not have to compromise your vision. You do not have to lose out everything. But if you are the one who wants to go to Arima and the other person wants to go to San Fernando, well, then we probably can end up somewhere in Lopino or somewhere the other. So I'm not going deep south, you're not going far east. We are going to go somewhere, but we set in our minds where we are going based on what we set out to do. And that is where vision helps you. That's where vision helps you because uh, in the whole idea of the win-win, you understand that I am wrong about the destiny here because we are coming together. And you say you are wrong about your destiny. And now that we come together, wherever we decide, we are right. That's where we are going. And so in understanding your destiny, you still have to understanding your vision. You still, when you come into the life of someone else, you have to make adjustments with the person. Now, if the person doesn't have any vision, anywhere you go, I will follow. And you hear you hear that all along as the state. I go in anywhere you go. But the truth of the matter, you have some other thing in your head, what you want to do, what you want to become, where you want to get at. And so when you become tired following, you rebel and the relationship suffers. And so if both persons have their vision clear in their mind where they want to be, they can make adjustments to get where as a couple they want to be at. And it's important that both persons have their vision. And if you think that where the person is going somehow that is not good enough for you, it's taking you too far away from what you want to become, let's remain friends. Let's stay in touch. Do not take any problems. The internet these days, doesn't matter what part of the world we are, we're going to stay in touch. You go where you want to go, I go where I want to go. We don't have to make that commitment because we are making our relationship based on something else beside the feelings, beside the, those things that run through our body at that point in time, the good looks and what have you. And so, it's important that we have agreements in our, when you come together, that you have agreements and you have the integrity, the trust, and the respect to, once you make those agreements, that you stick with them as the family vision. Yes.
I'm going to give you allow you to breathe for a minute. I'm going to invite the audience to feel free to pose your questions in the chat because Pastor Henry has really shared a lot. I'm going to kind of give a synopsis of what I heard. All right. And feel free to, correct anything because I want the audience to know what they're walking away with. So I love the fact that you chose V, the three V's. And it's easy to remember. And it's also easy to remember because with those three V's in place, we are more likely to have a victorious relationship.
That's right.
And vision, I see vision as being future oriented, right? When you have a vision, you have a clear path or clear understanding of where you're headed. And once you share that with your partner or potential partner, it helps your partner to also understand where your aspirations are and what your goals are for the future. And it really helps with alignment in the relationship. It is also a motivator because once I know where you're going and you know where I'm going, we can share that vision and we can work towards pursuing those goals together. But it also shares as a buffer in times of challenges, when conflict arises, because challenges will arise, right? But having a shared vision can provide that framework for resolving conflicts because we can always refer back to our common goals, our common aspirations, our shared vision. And then vocation speaks to one's life purpose, right? When you think about your life purpose, you think about your passion, your purpose in life, what God has ordained for you. And when you understand what your vocation is, it helps you attract a partner who respects and supports your life goals, right? As well, and it is the same as in the opposite direction. You begin to respect and support that person's vocation as well. But it also helps with work-life balance because once you understand each other's commitments, then you begin to chart a course that will help with the work-life balance so that you're not I was listening to a couple do an interview recently, and the interviewer asked the couple, tell us about one challenging thing that you experienced in your marriage, early in your marriage. And the wife said, well, early in our marriage, my husband took a job that required him to travel. So he was gone all week, and then he'd be home on the weekends. And that happened for the first 3 years of the marriage. And then finally she said to the husband, I did not marry you to be single. So they had to sit down and talk about it and make a decision to change it because she was living a single life while being married. But again, with a shared vision, you are more likely to work those things through earlier. Values. I love values because values really lays a strong foundation for who we are, for relationships. Whether those values speak to our integrity, the respect we have for each other, the type of person we are, but it really lays a strong foundation for relationships, and they guide us in our decision making, and it helps to promote trust and understanding in the relationship. And again, I'll go back to conflict avoidance because challenges will arise, but when our values are aligned, we are more likely to encounter um, some fundamental disagreements, but it's easier for us to navigate through those disagreements when we have aligned values. Um, our values also speak to our life choices, right? What kinds of decisions we make in life, such as what type of family we want to have. Do we want to have children? How do we plan to financially manage our relationship? How do we manage each other's understanding of values? So I love, love, love those three V's: vision, vocation, values, because I really believe, as you do, that they're very integral to the building of a successful relationship. And it helps to foster compatibility, it helps the communication, it helps to provide that framework for us to navigate through those challenges, and ultimately leads to a deeper, more fulfilling connection between the partners. That's kind of what I gleaned from what you shared so far.
All right,
That's
so let me touch this whole thing with vocation also, the importance of sharing the same vocation or calling. I think it's the wise man said in Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, there two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor.
Mhm.
If they fall, the one will lift up his fellow.
Mhm.
We know about the unequal yoke. Well, an unequal yoke can exist if a medical doctor pursues a mechanic, one who repairs cars for a marital relationship. But there can be oneness in vocation if the mechanic is seeking to be an engineer. And we have a lot of that in our world today. We have a lot of that. For example, well, let me just add to the mechanic and the mechanic and the doctor. Engineers and doctors are problem solvers who work with precision.
Yeah.
An engineer career often allows for a more predictable schedule than medicine.
Yeah.
And technology and medicine are increasingly connected, allowing interdisciplinary collaboration. Example, medical devices, innovation, AI, and healthcare, and what have you, and so on. So that if you understand what I'm saying, one of the problems that we are having today is that back in the 70s or 80s, when the education revolution came to the Caribbean, by that time, our men were way ahead than our women, and everybody started to push women to ensure that they get an education. That has happened in the last 20, 30 years. And now what we are seeing is that the young men now are not too concerned about the education. And the women, in order to get ahead, they are going after the education that is putting them in place to get what what they set out they want to accomplish. And so you have one gender that is more fulfilled in society than the other. And when it comes to marriage, you're asking people who, you're asking the medical doctor, let's say that the medical doctor is the lady, you're asking her to take her husband, who is the mechanic, to a function where there are other, a function for the people in medicine. And already the guy is out of the conversation altogether because where his head is at, he can't talk nuts and bolts and carburetor and all these different things because they're not talking about that there. But the wife is into science, so all her friends are into science, and then you start to have problems in the relationship. The biblical example that I see of vocation was Aquila and Priscilla. They shared the same profession, Acts 18:1-3. They were tent makers just like Paul. They opened their home for ministry and teaching, Romans 16:5. They both discipled Apollos, a powerful preacher, and helped him understand the gospel more accurately, Acts 18:24-26. To me, the fact that Luke and Paul, in referring to that couple, oftentimes they spoke of Priscilla and Aquila, may to me denote the prominence of the woman in the relationship. And sometimes we think that in Bible times that the guy was just this domineering figure. But it's strange that in all of the references, most of the references that I shared, you would see greet Priscilla and Aquila throughout the thing, and probably we have never stopped to think why you put the woman out to the front, or you're calling the woman's name before the man when it's the other way around, as we know it, Mr. and Mrs. We never say Mrs. and Mr. All right. So, but the thing is that when we find equality, the point I'm making is that when we find equality in vocation, when we find vocation where we can go home and talk to each other, I think that was one of the things that attracted me to my second wife. I mean, I was serving as a financial specialist. That's the job that she's doing. And, so we sit down, we talk. When there are issues, we have things to talk about, so many of them. So as Christians, make sure that when you come home from work, you have somebody there who can listen to you, and a person to whom you can listen when you get into a relationship. So vocation is very important in choosing your partner. The importance of sharing the same values, standards, or standards of judging what is important to the family. Values guides decision making. Values shape our priorities and choices. When partners share similar values, they are more likely to make decisions in agreement, whether about finances, parenting, faith, or lifestyle, because they have the same values. Values strengthen emotional connection. When both individuals prioritize similar principles, such as faith, honesty, integrity, or service, they naturally grow closer emotionally and spiritually. Values enhances conflict resolution because, in setting up your personal vision, there would come a time where you have to set up the family vision. And in setting up the family vision, you would want to inculcate the values. So these are our goals. What is the price we are willing to pay to achieve them? Your values decide that. And so when I recommend that when you sit down together to do your mission statement or your vision statement as a family, that you write it down, because sometimes people's values and vision change. And so when there are disagreements, and disagreements are inevitable. We're not going to agree on everything. Doesn't matter to whom you are married, you're going to have disagreements. But when your partners have, when you have common values and you have written them down, you can always go for the document where you have them, pull them out. Listen, this is what we agreed to. This is how we agreed that these situations would be handled. And so if we are going to change, let us now talk about what we are going to change it to. But we can't be, values would not allow us to be doing one thing, decide on a situation, using one principle today, and then next week we use a different principle because somebody else is involved. So that's it's important to have your family values. And values create a strong foundation for the family so that those values that you live by, remember, those are the values you would pass on to your children. And this is one of the areas that you hear a lot of people, where a lot of people have problems when it comes to parenting, because when values differ, the father saying this is he's probably maybe the disciplinarian. He says this is what goes. You may not do this as a child, and because values vary, the wife may be saying, nah, leave him alone. He's just a child. And before you know it, the child is getting his own way. The child becomes the parent in the family because he's getting to do what he wants while the parents are quarreling over him. So him or her. So it's important that your values, you share the same values, and those are things that you are supposed to be working on during the courtship period.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. Don't take the, I mean, don't use the courtship every night, every weekend. You have to be going somewhere and what have you. You can't see the person. Sit down. When you sit down and talk, when you get on the phone, these are things that are important. You tell the lady already that how colorful her eyes and her lips and everything is. Man, you can't be saying that all the time. Talk about the things that are important, because at the end of the day, it's more than just the words that you gonna talk about. So words from a man who had, here are the words from a man who had over 1,000 women in his lifetime. Do not lust in your heart after her beauty, and let her captivate you with her eyes. Proverbs 6:25. So leave the eye talk and the beauty talk. Once you have decided to get into a relationship that can lead to marriage, the lady knows how she is, you know how muscular you are. Talk things that are more sensible and more meaningful in the relationship. And don't get into that relationship simply because of her beauty. Again, Solomon would say, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. And how those of us who are old, how we know that, uh, you know, once you turn 60s or and getting into your 70s, you realize, boy, the picture that I had there as a young man is not the same. Just look at the passport. You had three passports away when you were in your 30s or 40s, and you realize, hey, boy, this is not the same person that I used to be. And so, yes, beauty is fleeting, but it says a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised.
Mhm.
Have a vision for your life and ensure that the person you pursue has a vision that will complement yours. You would not get too far if, as a Christian, a Caribbean person, your vision is to get to Canada and your partner's dream is to get to Argentina. So have a vision that you both can work around. It'd be nice if you have a profession. I like your suggestion, Dr. Neff, that if I could, my first marriage could not have worked as my second marriage. So that my first marriage, we lived together. My second marriage, my wife was here in Barbados. I was living in Trinidad, and we had to be thinking about our future. We didn't have many years to work. And so we had to be thinking. She couldn't get a job in Trinidad. I couldn't get a job. And I was just about 10 years to retire after we got married. So we bit the bullet. Weekends, had to use the airlines to travel, and thank God the prices back then weren't as they are now. But we lived until we am able to move here to Barbados, and not realizing that God was preparing me. And I spoke about that a little earlier on, the experiences that you have. It was preparing me then for the position in which I am now, so that it's still traveling. And thank God for it's, gosh, this is what, 2012, it's 15 years since I've been retired. And those 15 years I've used them. God has provided for us by having me travel to different parts of the world. I have 2 passports. One expired this year, expiring this year. There are no more pages in it, and the second passport is the same, with no more pages just to be stamped. Thank God they're stopping. Most of the countries now are no longer stamped in passports. So know your vocation, your calling. Find someone with the calling that will complement yours. As Hosea, remember that as Hosea, the preacher. Remember Hosea and Gomer. Hosea was the preacher. Gomer was the prostitute. And they broke up. And God had to send Hosea back to Gomer and say, listen, go love the woman again. And what I see in that is that you're going to have problems when you marry somebody who is not compatible in your profession. And if you're dealing with God, I think he would treat you like Hosea. You break up, no divorce, go and get the woman and marry to her again. Love her just as how I loved you as a human being. Doesn't matter what mistake you may, continue to love her. Now, that may be difficult for some individuals to take, but that's how I see it, that marriage is for life. And, you have to be able to work through some of those differences. And it's important that you do it from scratch. One of the things, Dr. Neff, why I'm so passionate about this particular program is that in my early life in church, there was no one to give us this information. And so many of us, the community that I grew up with as Christian, as far as marriage is concerned and living the marital life is concerned, most of us in our early years, we did it by trial and error. And so I'm hoping for this generation that as we pass this information to you, that you're going to think seriously about it and don't make the mistakes that some of us made in our marital relationships. That's it for me. If anybody has any question, be happy to take them.
Before you go, Pastor Henry, you said you were going to share some of those women in the Bible who you felt.
I was thinking about Priscilla and Aquila, actually.
Okay.
Yes, I was thinking about Priscilla and Aquila, very prominent woman. And here is a guy who, but they had the same profession. They were both tent makers. And when it came to teaching, here is Paul saying that, Paul is saying to Timothy, I suffer not the woman to teach or to preach or to teach. I suffer not the woman to teach, right? And everybody jumps on that particular passage of scripture. But here she is saying that a person like Apollos, this man who turned out to be this profound preacher, she was saying that his teaching was from not Aquila, but from Priscilla and Aquila.
And I was also thinking about Esther.
Yes.
And her uncle Mordecai encouraged her to go before the king, which was not the custom. And she made the decision to step out, right. And we saw how that worked out. And I also thought about Ruth and Naomi, when Naomi, her mother-in-law, encouraged her to pursue Boaz.
Yes.
And how that worked out. So there are instances in the Bible where women stepped out, made the first move.
That's right.
Ruth and
Boaz, yes.
And
don't forget, Ruth was the great-grandparent of David.
That's the line. Yes, exactly. That's the line from which Jesus came out. So there's some precedent for that in the Bible. Absolutely. Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up to those in the audience who are listening. I'm going to check to see if there's a question in the chat. I was thinking of the Proverbs 31 woman. Maria shared that. You want to enlighten us a little bit about that, Maria? She.
I was thinking how industrious she was, and her husband was um uh, spoken to her about her at the gates. He was proud of her. It didn't really make mention of what his vocation was, but she went out and made an income that benefited the entire family. So that's why I thought of her.
Yes, yes. And interestingly, he was praised, right? Because of
Yes.
yes. All right. Any other questions? Anyone who would like to step out and ask a question? I saw Pastor Samuel, Pastor Griffith. Who else is in the audience? Let's see here. Pastor Samuel, Pastor Griffith, any thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah, good evening, good evening, good evening. Pastor Henry is just so masterful, so skilled in presenting the information with all the appropriate perspective. Such an eye-opening, and that's why programs like these are so necessary. Like Pastor Henry said, first of all, sorry, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Like Pastor Henry said, when he was younger, this information wasn't available, and I can see why he is doing so much now to make sure that everyone have it now because it's so needed. Because oftentimes people get involved emotionally and don't have all the understanding in the background as to what is needed for a successful marriage or relationship, and they think because of how I feel, that's enough. And then they discover down the road, hey, we're in trouble. We're now having to find out what we should have known before we got to this point. So hearing this is so life-changing and transforming just to know there is a recipe, there is a pathway, there is a path that one could take to guarantee successful marriage, not without challenges, but at least a roadmap to know it can be successful. We can work through things even when we are challenged. And so I appreciate so much having that information, and I know our audience are so empowered by this. So thank you again, Pastor Henry and Dr. Neff, for really helping us to understand and gain the insight. So this generation cannot say we don't have it. We don't know. I grew up and what I was exposed to, my family never did this, they never told me that. Okay, we understand, but through these programs, you don't have an excuse anymore. You're now given the tools, you're now equipped to do better. So you know better, so you can do better. Thank you so much again.
Hi, I must admit that I came on late and have been active back and forth, so I can't speak exactly to all that Pastor Henry was spoken to. But I really support the idea of family and helping people to understand what marriage is all about. And even after 38 years, I'm still working on mine. My children are almost all the way from home now. Maybe the other young one will come back or he's overseas training otherwise. But even now, I am still becoming. I'm learning how to live in the house with my wife only now. And I need to be a little more careful. I need to understand that I'm forgetting. Sometimes I'm sitting down in the chair and I'm drinking and I get up, I leave the glass right there, and the wife don't like that. But I'm learning and I'm improving. And I say that to say that I would like those who are married and those who are not yet married to understand that you don't become perfect, but you deliberately make an effort to make it, and that there are sacrifices, they're compromising. And I'll end in this one simple thing, that I have a quote recently that I've developed myself that suggests that the world is a very large place reduced by our human need to be social. But in order for this to be practical, there must be consideration and cooperation. May God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. We appreciate that so much. All right, well, we have come to the close. Pastor Henry, you have any closing remarks?
No, I think I've said it all. Thanks.
Okay. Well, we are so thankful that you joined us this evening for another episode of Real Talk Family Life. We are hopeful that you have gleaned something from the nuggets that we shared today that will help you as you pursue relationships or as you continue developing and thriving in your relationships, so that God will get the glory out of the victory that will come from your implementing those 3 V's. And you know, those of you who are well into your relationships, don't think that all is lost because you didn't discuss the 3 V's prior to marriage. You could always discuss the 3 V's, and you could always work towards implementing those in your life. So we're thankful to you for coming here today, and we now turn it over to Pastor Henry as he wears his other hat in promoting upcoming
Well,
episodes.
look forward to seeing you next week, God's willing. We continue the discussion, and then I think the following week we deal with something. We have another series. We start another series on dealing with grief. Very important. The scenario would be different, but plan to be with us in Real Talk and invite somebody. Bring somebody with you next week, God's willing. Don't come alone. Bring someone with you. And those who are coming for the first time, I'm just trying to go through the participants list. I'm seeing some new devices that I hadn't seen before. Welcome, and the Lord bless you, and bring someone with you next week, God's willing. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Neff. Thank you, Pastor Samuel. Thank you, Pastor Griffith.
Good night, everyone.
And have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Pastor Henry.
Yes, you're welcome.
Bye, sis.
Bye.
Bye, brother. Okay, bye.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you again. Goodbye.
Yes. Doc.
Bye-bye.
Good,
Good
good.
night.
Good night, Pat.
Yes,
Good
Brother
night,
George. Good
Georgie.
night.
Bye.
Dr. Nev, I put something in the host chat, and if you could check it when you get a chance for me, please.
All right.
Yes, yes.
Okay. What's that? Okay.
Good night, Pastor Henry. Goodbye, Dr. Neff.
Goodbye,
Good
good
night,
night.
good night. Good, Teresa, good night. All the way. You gone way past your bedtime. Nice having you.
Yes, I know, but I'm always up. I'm used to it now.
Oh,
Okay.
that's good. We're glad you're here.
Yes.
Let me check.
All right. Okay, well, pleasant night, and see you, Adrian and the Henrys. Lord bless you all, and have a good one.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right.